Hi, I'm Teacher Jaye, and in 8 months I'll be taking my Chinese O-level exams for the very first time. Since the start of the year, I've been working my way up the primary school levels from P1 to P5. And now, it's time for my first major Chinese exam, PSLE. Now, of course, for most, this is a core memory when it comes to growing up. But for me, I'm using it as an opportunity to see whether the improvements I've made can be translated into actual results. And so, I'll be taking the 2021 Chinese version of the PSLE. But just before that, I thought I want to share some of the changes I've made to my study routine since my last update to you in chapter 17. Now let's begin at home. When I'm not out and about doing my other documentary projects, I would spend a lot of time on this desk, either editing or formulating new ideas. Of course, with the time that I have left, I will try my best to study, but more often than not, I would succumb to the pressures to either do extra work or be distracted and watch YouTube videos instead. So what I do these days is that I'll take all of my study material, put it in my bag, so that wherever I may go in Singapore, be it for work or anywhere else, I would find opportunities to study there instead. Now, a favorite of mine are places with swings, because if I'm playing Duolingo on my phone, or I'm just finding a nice conducive place to read aloud on my textbook, then being able to swing while I study helps me to keep my fidgetness at bay. And for more conventional places, let's say with just a table and chair, I would often bring this around. It's a fidget toy that really helps me to focus, and these are just some of the minor adjustments that I will continue to make as I get a better understanding of my own habits and behaviors while studying. Speaking of which, my studies these days really focuses on reading stories, particularly in the textbooks, where they also give us a guide on some of the characters we must know by a certain level, which becomes very helpful because I do try to use them in everyday life, and you will get to see me put myself to the test in subsequent chapters, so do stay tuned for that. As of now, most of the opportunities for me using them is in conversations, particularly when it comes to messaging other people in Chinese. However, I have realized that the more tired I become, the harder it is for me to Chinese. And so there is another activity that I am doing, and I hope that it will help me to improve in this regard. So there's an analogy that I often like to use when it comes to my studying of Chinese, which is that it is very much related to my own struggles when it comes to exercise. In both activities, you need both consistency as well as honesty in order to experience sustained improvements. So for me, it became a surprise when I started to use both of these activities in tandem. I would do a set in my exercise, and during my rest, I would actually read a 2 Chinese article, and that serves as my rest time. And for the rest of the workout, I would listen to Chinese podcasts on Spotify, namely One Call Away, as well as 瞎扯学中文, and they will accompany me throughout my exercise. And you know, people may enjoy Chinese dramas, Chinese songs, but for me, this is the content that I enjoy. And I'm starting to understand why people say that you can improve drastically when you do activities that you really look forward to. And that's what I've been doing over the past few months. Now, some of you may realize that I'm not doing a few of the activities that I've mentioned in my previous update. One thing in particular is being able to memorize the 500 most common Chinese characters through Anki Joy. And the reason for this is pretty simple. Because I've started to focus more on reading the textbooks and their stories, I feel that this activity will help me memorize these characters in a much more natural process. And so, you won't have that 死背. In fact, by going through all of the textbooks, the publishers say that you would be able to at least recognize 1,655 characters. Now, apart from this, there's also the aspect about video. And video content was something that I hope would help me early on in my journey. But because of how hectic my work schedule is, I find it hard to find time to watch this content, even though I enjoy them. So I hope to resume it very soon. In fact, for those of you who may be interested, I would highly recommend Chef Wang Gang on YouTube. And even for the Mid-Autumn Festival, for instance, I've relied heavily on the Chinese tech YouTuber space in order to understand the various 词语 and other terms that they use to communicate these kinds of knowledge.
差到宁可不用的地步。
差到宁可不用的地步。With all that said, do I think that all of these activities really helped me in improving my grades from P1 to P5? Personally, I don't think I can give a definite answer. But I also don't think that's the point as well, because I'm not doing all this just to improve my scores. It's all about trying to be able to use Chinese to live life to the fullest as a documentary storyteller. And so you will see me take on more meaningful challenges as I continue to improve. Till then, I think I really do want to thank you though for sticking around for the journey, as well as giving me both encouragement and tips on how I can improve. I will definitely do my best with all of the challenges that's coming up, which for now would be PSLE. Hello, Jay 老师.
Hi, okay, Jay.
Thank you for making time for this to be my PSLE invigilator.
My pleasure.